Good morning. It says, do one thing every day that scares you. I'll tell you what scares me. Talking to the sabras of Israel. They're prickly on the outside, but I'm told they are soft on the inside. So I hope we can connect at that soft inner core without losing our resilience. Let's begin by connecting very quietly. Just keep your feet together and straighten your backs. And without losing that strength and resilience that all women of Israel have, I invite you to just deepen and widen yourself with your breath. Take a nice deep breath and release it. Go all the way into your belly. Nice deep breath and release. Last time, deepen and widen. Make that container a little deeper and wider today so we may learn something new from each other. And I release my fear into that. And I offer you to release whatever it is that may come in the way of learning today. Thank you. So this keynote talk is about 20 minutes, and it's called, I've decided to call it Exercising Power Gracefully. And as we get into the talk, I hope you'll understand why I have used 3 words with great care. So the roots of modern leadership lie in conflict, territorialism, and essentially the exercise of power. You want your will to get done. You want an outcome that you want done. And if we see the models of leadership and the energy that traditionally accompanies leadership, it looks something like that. It comes from our jungle, our evolution through the animal kingdom, and that's a tribal chief, and from the Mahabharata, a scene of the great Indian epic where the patriarch, as he lies dying on a bed of arrows, he talks about what is the right way to lead your people to the Pandavas. In China, we have the art of war, which is again a text on how do you win wars, and this has been used in business as well, saying that leading business is like leading a war. Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar, Henry VIII, Winston Churchill. Traditionally, these have been our models of great leaders. And as you look at this list, what comes to your mind? All men, right? And yet this has been the most successful leadership model by far. The time has come for us to try something new because we are in very different times, and what got us here is not going to get us there. We find traditional leadership is not working anymore. And we have no choice but to find a new model of leadership. And that is what Shakti leadership attempts to offer. One model for a new kind of leadership that creates a world that works for all. So what is Shakti? Shakti is the invisible feminine. And I saw this cartoon in the New Yorker, and it perfectly captures that power. There's the elephant in the room, and it's sitting on a psychiatrist's couch, depressed. And it says, I'm right there in the room, and no one even acknowledges me. So that is Shakti, which is not just masculine power that has been traditionally used in leadership, but there is also something called feminine power. And that feminine power is called Shakti in the Indian yogic tradition. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that. Shakti is very, very simply the power of presence. So for that, I need to explain what presence is. Presence is a state that all of us can access when we are not in our ego, when we are not in our typical, conditioned, everyday, ordinary state of behaviors. So presence, according to the work of the Enneagram and many other traditions, what if I simply say to you, presence is a state where I have stepped back from my gut and I have nothing to defend. I have stepped back from my heart and I have nothing to promote. And I have stepped back from my head and I have nothing to fear. When I can step back from one of these three places, which is where we typically tend to go when we feel threatened, we tend to go to one of these three places. And then we get into our automatic old behaviors of fight, flight, survive. But to discover something new, we need to go beyond those behaviors. So when I step back from my head, my heart, and my gut, I can stand in a ground of pure presence, which is like standing in my spine. When I stand in this spine, I become aware that I am here now. And I discover that there is a power that is moving through me anyway. I don't have to do anything. It is moving through me. This is called Shakti. It is growing my nails. It is growing my hair. It is moving the cosmos. It is the power of evolution which is underway regardless of what I do, right? And when I can tap into that primal power, I am a force of evolution itself. And I become aligned with where evolution wants to go. That is a supreme power. So the power that comes from that presence, you discover all I need is within me. All I need comes to me. And all I need flows through me. It's as if you step out of the ego self, the narrow self, limited self, and you are now tapped into something that is much more natural and easy and way more powerful and effective. And this is the practice of all spiritual traditions, all consciousness traditions, which are trying to understand how do we become free and fulfilled. If we really want to be free and fulfilled as human beings in the short time we have on this planet, then there must be another way to live. And these are the practices that get us there. So presence, any way that gets you to presence is your path. You don't have to choose only one. You can try different until you find the one that works for you. But when you can step out of your ego, you step into presence, you are now working from a totally different power base. That power base is Shakti. Okay? So we'll go a little bit deeper into that. Shakti is, therefore, the regenerative and creative force of creation. It fuels evolution. It animates consciousness, and it drives change. So leadership talks about, modern leadership models out there are talking about becoming more present, being, having presence, presencing things. What I would like to add to that idea is just pure witness, mindfulness, awareness is sterile. You need to drive change from that place, and that needs fuel. That needs energy. Imagine if you had an amazing Mercedes-Benz car, fabulous, but there's no gas in it. It's very important to have that gas in that car, right? So Shakti is that fuel that has to move through you. So what is the fuel you are driving on, is what you have to ask yourself. Why is Shakti called feminine? Simply because in the Indian idea, like in the Chinese system, we have the yin and the yang, the duality. The masculine is considered Shiva in the Indian tradition, which is pure awareness, witness, mindful, completely aware. But to be active, it needs the feminine power, Shakti, to create and to manifest. And therefore, because this power, this principle creates and generates, it's called the mother. It's called feminine. It has the capacity to give life. So I want you to check in. What is your power base? A very quick check to understand where are you operating from? What fuel is your car running on? So true power is win-win. There is a power-with approach you have. And this is something I heard yesterday on stage, that Saluna was honoring Hot as Hell, was it a company like that? And it was fantastic to hear that when you understand to really win, you have to win-win. And you get to a place where you don't see the competition as your enemy, but you see it as a very good sparring partner to raise your game. And everybody's game gets raised in the process, okay? So true power is when it's not a win-lose, zero-sum game, but you work with power. You work with power, and it becomes win-win. And it's the force for greater good. It's not about just me winning and you losing. And this power is Shakti. It's an internal source. It's unlimited, and it cannot be taken away from you. I often say, as humans, we are like fish in the water dying of thirst when there's an entire ocean to drink from. And we're fighting on these little batteries. I'll take your battery or you take mine, right? And we're fighting. So can we instead find the real unlimited power that's within? And when we operate from this power, it lasts. Whatever we create lasts. Versus false power, which is win-lose. It's a power over or power under. You give your power away to something by mistake. It's the force of narrow self-interest. And it's based on privilege. You know, what is your visiting card? Are you the boss of the company? Are you white? You know, what it gets privileged in our society. The male is privileged over the female. The West is privileged over the East. People with money are privileged over people without money. So we have created these privileges, and then the game becomes about who has more privilege. And money and power becomes the only game in town. Okay? So unfortunately, because we then depend on these external source of getting power from these privileges, it's a finite amount. It can be taken away from you. Tomorrow, I often ask CEOs, if you were not CEO, when you retire, can you walk into a room and command the same kind of respect and the same kind of response? If you can, then you are operating from your Shakti. You are not operating from the privilege of your designation. When we operate from false power, ultimately we discover it fails. We think we've created and generated something, but it cannot last because it's not sourced from that regenerative wellspring. You've got to keep pumping it with energy from the outside, and it's exhausting. So broadening into the idea of Shakti, there is a dual nature of all things. There's the feminine and there's the masculine, what's called the yin and the yang. We all understand that globally. Wherever there's a right brain, there's a left brain. When we have tasks, we also have to see relationship. Where there is thought, there is feeling, intellect, intuition, testosterone, estrogen, concentration, relaxation, convergence, divergence, will, grace. So if you think about it, for everything that's true, its opposite, its complementary other has to coexist with it. There is no one without the other. So if you understand that, we say a Shakti leader is whole. And when we say a Shakti leader is whole, I'm missing that visual there. I have a picture of what's called the half-man, half-woman god. It's literally a picture in the Indian iconography which shows a person whose right side is male, Shiva, and whose left side is female, Shakti. And it's as if all of us are being invited to become like that. When you mature biologically and psychologically, you become half man, half woman. You become the perfect integration of both. And that's the only place from which you come into your full power. Otherwise, you're leading with half your power. You're living with half your power because you're not psychologically whole. And to stop being mythical about it and to make it very direct for you, I want to show you these 4 quadrants on masculine and feminine power. Let's try and understand this. This work is adapted from Barry Johnson's idea of polarities. Brilliant, brilliant work. Highly recommend it. So what we don't want is to block our Shakti, right? What we want is to release and have our Shakti, our power, moving in full force, in appropriate, optimal power. And for that, we have to know how to leverage feminine power and how to leverage masculine power. And it's like inhale and exhale. If I were to ask you, inhale or exhale, choose. Is that a choice? It's not a choice, right? Because you have to know how to undulate between both in an appropriate way. Anything without the other, one to the neglect of the other, is unsustainable of life. So same goes for the idea of feminine and masculine energy in life and in leadership. So, what is the positive of feminine power? These are amazing words that people like you in an audience gave back to me, and I captured it on a chart. Positive feminine qualities needed in life and in leadership: empathy, gentleness, inclusion, nurturing, openness, creativity, rasa, that essence, that juice of life, the variety, the flavor, trust, vulnerability, harmony. Powerful, beautiful, essential, necessary qualities, wouldn't you say? And yet, these are not typically how we define leadership. Having looked at the feminist movement, therefore, they're about privileging the feminine and valuing the feminine and saying, let's reward this, let's acknowledge this, let's express more of this energy. But sometimes if you do it to the neglect of the other, then you get the worst of the masculine. And the worst of the masculine is aggressive, cruel, mechanical, arrogant, insensitive, violent, power-hungry, spiritually empty. These are descriptions, again, given from an audience like you. And if you look at feminine as wonderful and you look down at the masculine, chances are it's because you see it like this. But the point is, if you neglect the healthy masculine, you are also going to go into excess feminine. And excess feminine has its own downsides. It can be smothering, sentimental, needy, dependent, exploited, unfocused, irrational, weak, manipulative. Take a nice deep breath. We have all been here. Yes? Oops, what did I do? Yes. And before I move into understanding how to work with this chart, let me complete the quadrants. There is a positive masculine. Of course, there is a beautiful, powerful masculine. And that would be clarity, assertiveness, focus, direction, order, discipline, structure, discernment, strength, convergence. Get it done, right? Just looking at this is a very powerful. May I understand why this is happening? Okay, I need to still work on this chart before it moves into the numbers. I ask each one of you to check in. Where do you go when you become excessively feminine? For example, I go to becoming needy. I become very needy. I want someone to validate me, to tell me how amazing I am, especially my husband, right? And then when I start becoming needy, I know, now that I know this work, I have to move into the healthy masculine. And for me, the healthy masculine is reaching for self-care. And so I go and validate myself. I pamper myself. When I reach neediness, it's because I have not taken enough care of myself. And so I go ahead and act and do what I need to do to self-care. Equally, when I become overly masculine, what is my sign that I've become overly masculine? Where do I go? Just look at yourselves and ask, where do you go in that lower quadrant of excess masculine. I know I become very judgmental. And when I catch myself now becoming judgmental, I say, oh, stop, Nilima. You have to leverage and return to more healthy feminine. And so I go towards compassion. I go towards other care. And I have found the sweet spot that life is about knowing how to flex between the upper two quadrants from a place of presence. And if I lose presence and I lose that ability to flex between compassion and self-care, I fall below the line and I'm doomed in this little dance of death between neediness and judgment. And it's a horrible hell to be in. Okay? So this is, if there's one thing you take away from this entire talk, I would invite you to never forget this chart. Catch yourselves when you fall below the line and you know what you need to dial up on the other side to move into healthy leveraging of masculine and feminine energy. And when you can do that, you unlock your full power. You come into your full Shakti when you have leveraged both your feminine and your masculine energy. Does that make sense? So I ask you, power over or power with? Here's a quick check-in for yourselves. Think of a key relationship in your life. How do you exercise power in this relationship? Is it mostly power over or power with? Sometimes it could also be giving away power. So think of a person who models power over leadership and someone who models power with leadership. And what can you learn about your own relationship with power? How can you watch for power over dynamics? Catch yourself and shift to power with dynamics from now on. Notice how and when you may be giving away your power or unconsciously tend to lose it and you feel powerless. Why do you think this happens? And how can you prevent it? These are deep questions. They're going to take a long time to work through, but that is what's called sadhana in yoga. It's practice, practice, practice. Mindfulness, mindfulness, mindfulness. Being the change, being the change, being the change. Doing that inner transformation. So the journey through the 5 elements of Shakti leadership, I'm coming to the end of this talk. Just to leave you with the model, this is the book. The entire work is in here. And it's available on Amazon. The essence of the model is that there are 5 elements. And we're going to dance the 5 elements later this afternoon for the closing of this conference. But to understand the 5 elements as they relate to Shakti leadership, the first element is to be present. From a place of presence, you tap into the womb, the primordial power source, which is Shakti itself. And from that place of Shakti, you now develop 3 capacities needed for a conscious leader. The first is wholeness. You have put together all your lost halves. You have become your own mother and your own beloved, if you're a woman. You've become your own father and your own lover, if you're a man. And you become psychologically whole. I call it the holy family reunion. Right? And from that place of psychological wholeness, you discover flexibility. You're not stuck in a whole state. You know how to flex to the situation. Do I become, and how can I become, the wise fool of tough love? Wise, when do I need to be wise like my parent? Fool, when do I need to just lighten up and be foolish and bring on my inner child and play and dance and imagine and not take myself so seriously? Tough, when do I need to draw a healthy boundary and say no? And love, when do I need to open those boundaries and allow the world in? And you will notice any leadership or life challenge that you are stuck in right now can be diagnosed with the lens of these 4. Wise, fool, tough, love. That's it. Any situation you are stuck in, you will ask, do I need to be more wise? Do I need to be more foolish? Do I need to be more tough? Do I need to be more love? it's that fourfold self, the core self that has these 4 drives. And you can flex between them, you achieve that self-mastery, and you can be in selfless service of the last quality, which is called congruence. Congruence is, do you know your purpose, and are you on purpose? Are you congruent? Is your inner self who you essentially are, what we call your swabhav, is that your dharma now? Is that your purpose for which you are living your life? Are you manifesting who you essentially are? Are you on purpose? So a Shakti leader follows these 5 elements, and we put a circle around it because the circle is this amazing work of Joseph Campbell called the heroic journey. The heroic journey basically says to come into our power, to mature, to individuate, to grow up and become self-directed human beings, we are going to have to make a journey. We are going to have to die in some way to our childhood and our limitations. We are going to have to face our fears, our worst nightmares, and on the other side of that lies our gift, our Shakti, our greatest life. And then we have to come back with that new power, competence that we have gained in service of the world. We bring that back as an elixir in service of the world we serve. Okay? So these are the 5 elements and the journey through the 5 elements of Shakti leadership. It's captured in this beautiful red gold symbol, which is also used as a meditation tool if you want. You're all welcome to email me, be in touch with me, and I'm happy to mail that yantra to you if you would like. So one message takeaway, Shakti leadership is an invitation to access, which is step in, embody, step up, and manifest, step out, your true power gracefully. Thank you.